at the barbershop. Let's rock, we at the barbershop. Stay tuned.
All right. It's your man, Max Weezy, and live from the 919. This is the Barbershop podcast. I am joined by Chris Jenkins, who is, you are the man, you're the man of the people, the Charlotte Vibe, covering all things Charlotte sports, especially the Panthers and Hornets, and you've been covering things in Charlotte for a while now, haven't you, Chris?
A while would be a good way to put it, man. Sometimes when you hustling, you kind of don't remember when you first started. You just know that you hustling. But yeah. I would guess maybe 2006-ish, 2010-ish, somewhere in between there.
And in that time, I mean, obviously, you know, the internet's been around for a while, but when we think about, like, you know, sports blogging and just content creation in general is really something that's come on stronger in the last few years. But what was it that made you start way back then?
So, you know, I've been told that I'm a cool nerd. So I actually studied computer science in college. And so I've always had this, you know, I was a computer programmer, to be honest with you. And, but I still was cool. I still enjoyed other things. I still enjoyed being social. And just way back when, I was like, I wasn't as smart as Mark Zuckerberg, but I was like, hey, I could create a website that would help people socialize and network. And that's how it all started, with me trying to do what I do online, and just kind of thinking way back then, like, hey, I have a sheet of paper here, but I was like, you know, people are going to move away from paper, man, because you can get the information so much quicker electronically. So that's how I got started into doing journalism through the internet.
Yeah, awesome. And definitely, I mean, and obviously, like, you have kind of like worked your way up, and now people kind of like know your face and kind of know what you're doing, and obviously you've been able to get great access with the teams there. So I mean, that's definitely, like, I appreciate that story, because it's not only like a good hustle story, but it's also, man, like you said, 2006, it's 14 years and you're still, you know, doing this, you're still working at it. So, you know, for people that, you know, listen to me, I always I get people on here that, you know, obviously, you know, we can talk and it's interesting and everything like that, but I also just want to, for all the people out there that are trying to, you know, create content or just find their way or do whatever they do in business, I think that it's just another great example of, you know, longevity, working at it, trying to, you know, figure out how to serve, you know, a need, and just continuing to work at it, you know, no matter how long it takes.
And the biggest thing is, you always got to, number one, you always got to be consistent. And then you still always have to try to continue to reinvent yourself, because, you know, the digital world makes things so much cooler and quicker to get, but it also is so much easier for everyone else to do. So if you're not continuing to try to do something different, then you're probably going to start to go backwards. And it's happened to me, to be honest with you, at times.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's a great point. I mean, I'll just, you know, quickly say, for me, like, you know, when I started this, it's something that, you know, it's a passion project for me. You know, I'm a journalist, you know, that's what I get paid to do, obviously, but I do this on the side, just, you know, for me personally. And, you know, also I decided, before, I kind of was just talking to friends, I had different topics, and that's great and everything. I love all my friends, but I think when the pandemic hit, I was trying to think of ways to sort of kind of do this in a different way. And I kind of decided I need to bring people on to bring value, people that work in different fields, and try to just up my game in terms of the professionals and the people that I have on here, so that, you know, people will listen and really take something away from people that are actually sort of doing the work. So, but yeah, man, so just moving on, obviously, to the Panthers. You know, it's been a crazy football season, especially for Carolina fans and for all fans in general. And there's so many talking points with the NFL in general and with the Panthers. But how do you feel about the way the Panthers handled Cam Newton's departure, especially seeing the way he's performing now?
Departures, when are they ever going to be like a parade and fun and yay and hugs and kisses, right? Is the only time a departure is like that is when there's a retirement. Otherwise, if you want to go from, you know, a really high profile guy like Steve Smith Cam Newton to even Greg Olsen, right? You know, Greg Olsen's a really pro. I got that from Matt Rule because he calls guys pros all the time. You know, he's a pro's pro, but but you know, even Greg Olsen when he left wasn't too happy about how things went down. So, you know, I think it's just the business part of it all. As a fans, you certainly want to see guys stay, and you know, we control it as fans. We probably have every guy stay too long till he's just absolutely awful and taps out. But you know, I think Cam leaving wasn't a bad thing. It was a risk thing in terms of this guy having been injured as many times as he has. A situation where you're paying him a whole lot of money, and you're maybe thinking that I don't know if he's going to make it or if he doesn't, but you got a new owner that's here, and this new owner wants to sustain excellence. So how much can you really promise this guy that you're going to sustain excellence if you got a guy with a hobbled will that you're paying, I don't know, 25-ish million a year, and you kind of want to start to get another quarterback that could sustain. So in that sense of, you know, risk and reward, you know, Cam / to Teddy Bridgewater, in terms of the long term, Teddy Bridgewater is certainly a more healthy looking option. And, you know, Cam having a good time that he's having in New England is great for him, but I don't think that Panther fans should look at it like, oh, shucks, we should have kept Cam, because it's still only 2 weeks into a 17-week season where that little wheel that he got on and that fresh tire might, you know, get a little worn after you get a few hits. I don't hope that happens, but that's just a liability. That's something that's possible to happen with him. So I think we're doing fine. I know some fans may agree with me, but I think I really like how this team is going. You're welcome to disagree with me, Max.
Yeah. So a couple of things on that for me. What makes it hard in hindsight is the fact that I wish I could see what it would be like if they had kept him, only to see what would have happened afterwards in terms of like, does Luke Kuechly retire? Are they able to keep like more veterans on the team? Because I think I can't remember if Luke retired before or after they released Cam, but obviously if Luke retired before they released Cam, then I think he would have had to have some knowledge of how they were feeling towards him. You know, because I feel like he would have stayed if Cam stayed, but so it's hard to say like, oh yeah, they should have kept him, because I love Cam Newton while he was here. He was, you know, to me, he really put Carolina on the map. He changed, you know, the organization for the better, and so did Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera should get a lot of credit for that. And in hindsight, I kind of wish the Panthers were more patient with Ron Rivera, to be honest, more so than Cam, because I mean, good coaches are really a lot more difficult to find than good quarterbacks, in my opinion. So, you know, again, it's hard to answer just like straight out for me. I think it's just depending on like how the other chips fell. I think if Cam was the quarterback of the team as currently constituted, I think he would have struggled anyway, especially because of the defensive side of the ball. You know, I think the offense would have been fine, but I think his upgrade from Teddy Bridgewater, but I just don't think he has a great season with the team the way it is now. But so that kind of all plays into it. But for me, I think that I'm just hoping that these changes and everything that's happening now is not for nothing. I hope that we're able to turn around. If we're really bad this year, I hope we get, you know, I hope we get Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, whatever. You know, I just hope that there's a light at the end of the
silver lining at the end of the tunnel.
It's got to be, because I feel like the Panthers in their short history have never been bad for very long. It's always been bad for a couple years, playoffs, you know, NFC championships, Super Bowls. So, you know, I kind of hope that we we turn this around and then we're able to find more consistent success moving forward.
Yeah, for me personally, I like a lot of things that I'm seeing so far, but I don't think Cam Newton's stand would have changed a lot of the other veterans leaving. That's always, I won't say always, but that's mostly a money contract issue with those guys. I feel like people love playing with the player, but I feel like coaching is a bigger thing that wants a player to come to than a quarterback would, unless you're really, really elite. Now, I don't want to get into a discussion about how elite Cam Newton is, but with him having those injuries that he's had and not being able to play, most of the other guys leaving would have been a contract issue. I know I saw a guy at the airport coincidentally, and he, the off the record comment was basically, I wanted money that they didn't want to give.
Right.
And Luke is, to me, one of those people that don't care who's around. He just wants to ball out. To me, if Luke wanted to go because personnel changed, then when Thomas Davis left, he might have went out and sought all this money or something different to be in a better position. And he never did that. Luke's situation seemed extremely medical, even though he didn't get into it. If you look at the video from when he first sat down to do the thing, just how he looked, I mean, this guy looked not like he lost his best friend, but he looked like, I don't want to stop playing football. But, there's more to life than just football for him. And he's still with the team in some kind of capacity. So I think Teddy Bridgewater is doing fine. I know he had the 2 interceptions this past game against the Bucks, but other than that, I don't feel like I've seen Teddy Bridgewater do things where I'm like, oh my goodness, where you would get those things from Cam, especially with his accuracy. Occasionally, I feel like everybody knew, like, okay, here he goes throwing way high, and he's off, and you're wondering when he's going to get back on target. And for the most part, for what I see, Teddy seems to be on target more consistently than Cam. You haven't seen him run as dynamically, but heck, he's not a freaking lineman with 4.6 speed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of hard to do unless he's just super quick, like was it Murray in Arizona?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Teddy is a non-mobile quarterback in a world of, we're saying that mobility is really being highlighted and it's being successful, whether it be Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray is having a great year so far. So I think also too, like, it's easy to be, even on throws that he misses, for me with Teddy, it's easy to be like, it's easy to be frustrated because I think, and I got caught up in this, I had to stop myself. I think from a fan's perspective, you're automatically comparing to Cam, but also if you look at the quarterback play throughout the league, even with Tom Brady, Drew Brees, other quarterbacks, I think this learning process has made the play a little bit sloppy. Now, like, really, really high level quarterbacks like Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes are, seamlessly, it seems like they're seamlessly coming into the league and they're playing, having great success. But those are coaching staffs and systems that have, been there for a while. Whereas, although Teddy Bridgewater is familiar with Joe Brady's system, I think all the new coaches and the new quarterbacks are having a learning curve that we're not seeing with some other ones, and that's just the product of the way the offseason was with the shortened offseason and everything changing because of COVID.
Yeah, and for me, man, I go to think, I'll be candid with people all the time, and I said, man, I hope this team does well. I mean, heck, I like them and I cover them, so it's a lot better work environment when you're covering people that are winning. Than, I mean, that's a whole different tangent about going into a locker room after teams lose a game is tough enough, and going to that locker room after they've lost 3, 4, 5 games, it's brutal.
Right.
But for this team to have what I felt like was the chip stacked against them, with COVID interrupting so much of the off-season curriculum and programs and training, and you got a full new head coach, a young coordinator on defense side, offensive side, you got all these new players out there. I felt like they'd have a really huge uphill battle just because they're new. Like, have you ever started a new job and just the first week just did great? There's a learning curve, even if you're great, right? And these guys are playing good. They are having deficits that, again, if I'm new here, new coach, new things, and like, I don't know what's going to happen. We're losing. But these guys are coming back from deficits to be competitive in games and have legitimate chances to win. Even Mac, you're playing Tom Brady, your new coach, everything's new. He starts doing great. He's up on you by, I don't know, 17, 21 points.
Yeah, 21, yeah.
How easy is it not to be like, well, we're about to get beat by one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, and that didn't happen.
Right.
They fought back, and the defense stepped up, and they fought back, and then they started to break down at the end. But to me, that's pretty incredible considering how much experience that this team has and how young the defense is, averaging 21, 22 years of age. That's incredible. So I want them to win, but I feel like we're developing a product to give us an opportunity.
Let me ask you this then. How quickly do you think the Panthers can be a playoff team?
I mean, so far, I feel like they're doing great.
Yeah.
So if they continue like they are now, I don't see why that couldn't be extremely likely in year 2 and highly required in year 3.
Right.
Because they're doing so good on all aspects of building culture, having guys believe. A big thing with coaching is not only the head coach, but the coordinators and halftime adjustments. I feel like, oh man, I forget was it Shula we had a couple years ago that was a good game planner. Because if we came out doing good, we could start plenty games good. But if the other team went into halftime and made some adjustments, we just kind of like, so, and that hadn't happened yet to this team. So I feel very optimistic about it.
Yeah. And obviously, too, I didn't even know this until a couple of weeks ago. I think I saw that David Tepper, our new owners, the Panthers' new owner is the wealthiest owner in the National Football League, which kind of surprised me. But so being that the case, like, what do you think that can mean for the future of the team, being that he is the wealthiest?
Well, I think more so than him being the wealthiest is that his brain, right? We kind of talked about Jordan earlier, and let's do the same thing when we talk about David Tepper, because and I heard that he's the richest, and I kind of looked it up, and I forget if I found out and verified that he was the richest, but I know he's certainly top 3. Because I think Jerry Jones or Kraft came to mind when he said that, but I mean when I read that, but Tepper has a technical brain, right? And I say this from having talked to the guy several times, not one-on-one, of course, but through media. He is like this. He's like, I know I'm not a coach. I know I'm not Jerry Jones that can be a general manager, but I know about processes and what helps anything work. And that's where he's going to leverage and using all his money to get all these studies done and scientific things done and processes to be like, just even from he talked to us about scouting, right? So with COVID, nobody's traveling and people are having to sit at home like we are now and do Zoom and all kinds of things. So he's like, well, hey, just from a process standpoint, do we have to keep getting all of our coaches tired and driving them all around the world? What if we could actually do more evaluations of talent by implementing a very this high-tech center where all my coaches could do Zooms and analyze data and players more quickly and stuff all the time? So that aspect of intelligence and processes to make better decisions, I think will be where his money comes in to really help this team be like, I don't know, the Jetsons or something, or like Golden State. I think Golden State's a team in the NBA that heavily adopted technology being out there in Silicon Valley. I think he could do that kind of thing with the Panthers.
He seems a lot more analytical, a lot more analytical. I think the Golden State Warriors is a great comparison, actually, because I mean that's just sort of same. And the past couple of years he's been here, that's been my impression of him. And what you just described sort of supports that. And I think and that kind of just going back quickly just to the whole Cam Newton conversation, I think, and I heard this a lot in the national media, but just Cam Newton wasn't necessarily the best analytical quarterback. He's a lot of he a lot of his what made him great, but it's his off script. It's it's the things that you can't really measure, and so I think that was good sometimes, and also it could get him in trouble. But that I could also see why an analytical person would probably move away from that and want to play it a little bit safer. And real quick too, before we jump off here, Chris, I know that um, you know the whole world is are having more conversations around social justice and the things that are going on in this country, and that moved into the sports world, obviously. And I know around the time the NBA where they stopped play for a little bit, and I know that different teams were having internal conversations about what they could do to do more supportive social justice. The NFL obviously implemented some things, and I know the Panthers were. I know the Panthers had some conversations and some things about what they wanted to do, what they were going to do. So far, um, have you heard anything, or do you know of any plans that the Panthers have moving forward to sort of address some of the social issues uh, that are going on right now?
Yeah, they have had some team meetings to talk about what they would do. And so far, what I've been hearing is that they haven't they haven't come up with something yet. But the biggest thing that they want to be able to do as a team is make sure that everybody in the locker room understands that that there will be efforts to raise awareness for social injustices and making sure that teammates know about it. And the biggest thing they said they want to do is not have their teammates be surprised or shocked by something that whether it's a whole group or the whole team may want to do, as they just want to become more uh, promotional about those things. Like Shaq Thompson talking about the fact that he's never voted and he just thought he shouldn't vote or just didn't think that he needed to vote. And how he's trying to ask other players to sign up and vote, and this will be the first time that he votes. And, some players may kneel, or I forget what all they have done. But again, they haven't thought of one big thing to do as a unit, but more so they've had meetings to say, hey, we are going to individually or some groups do some things to have an impact. And I know Tepper's Foundation continues to do things in the community to help out as well. I know last year, even before this, social injustice came so big, but this is kind of not related, but somewhat related, was that he helped West Charlotte, which is pretty much a heavily Black populated school, gave them bus and transportations to go to a playoff game that they just didn't have the funds to do, and they're continuing to do stuff like that.
I saw that story. That was pretty cool. Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate your knowledge and expertise and your analysis of the Panthers so far. I know we don't have much to go on. Did you even think that we would have a season? Like, how did you feel about that? Were you nervous? I mean, it's a big part of your job, so I know you were.
Honestly, at one point, just to be, like I said, I like to be real with people. I was hoping that we just wouldn't,
Yeah,
because I just felt like, it is a business for me, and I'm thinking, how am I going to make this interesting for people? Because what they're doing, NASCAR started first, and what they're doing is giving just really the networks the access, and everybody else is remote. And what a lot of good stories and coverage like mine comes from being able to be in the locker room, be able to talk to a player without 50 other people around and ask them questions and get some insight and get some detail and be able to do those. Now I can't do that. Now it's a Zoom call. So if I want to, ask you a little bit more in depth about your play and maybe why you did this on this play and why did you do that on another play, I can't do that because everybody's watching. I'm like, hey, I got a question. So I didn't think we would, because I just felt like, of all sports, how could football not have cases of COVID just explode, because these guys are touching, sweating, getting cut, everything on one another, heavily, heavily contact. And I just felt like, okay, yeah, during the preseason, they're able to keep it under wraps because why? where the guys aren't playing football. They're just having meetings, and they're like, one guy's on the suite and the other guy's over here. I'm like, the real test is going to start once they start playing, and they're doing good. So I didn't think we would, but here we are. I still have concerns about and feel like an explosion of COVID cases could happen much more quickly in football than any other sport. Even, hockey's kind of a lot of contact, but they're covered a lot.
Yeah.
Well, no, they have open face masks in hockey, don't they?
Yeah. I'm not sure actually. That's a good question.
I think it's optional to have a covered face mask.
Yeah.
The goalies do, but still, football, you still have sleeves out. You have jerseys that could come out, and I just feel like there's a lot more sweaty contact that happens in football where you're just holding a guy than you do in hockey. Anyway, I'm going off of a tangent.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think one of the what's being underreported a little bit is the fact that in NFL they've done a great job. In college football though, I know at least there was the UNC was supposed to play UNC Charlotte last week, and they had like a lot. I think UNC Charlotte had like a few offensive linemen that had tested positive for COVID-19, and that's happening more often in college sports, in college football than it is in the pros. But there's a lot of reasons why that could be the case, and we will go down that rabbit hole. But I think the NFL is doing a good job. I think one of the things that has been happening though, and real quick, if you want to comment on it, there's just a lot of the injuries, and I remember even before the season, a lot of players were saying that they were a little bit nervous about soft tissue injuries because of lack of conditioning through the off season and no preseason, and we've seen a lot of torn ACLs, other soft tissue injuries so far. So even though people are some get bored by preseason games and all that stuff, do you think that this kind of justifies preseason because of all the injuries we're seeing so far?
Hey, you'll laugh at this one. I'm going to give you an old man's perspective on it. To me, your body simply needs more time to adapt to any kind of rigorous activity before you can really be good to go. Because I just started going back to the gym, and I really just trust it. I'm going to go really slow because my body just isn't used to it. And it'll still be like after the third day, it's just like, you're just not there yet where you can consistently go at a high level. And we're talking pro athletes, they go at a superb level. So I think it does affect them. And yeah, just from a conditioning standpoint, I think at least two of those games, or just maybe not even so much the games, because I know a lot of the veterans these days, they only play in the last game, and they might play 2 series in the other game. So veterans still don't play a whole lot, but I think just having the contact and the practice go a little bit longer would be helpful. I don't know how much preseason they need. Honestly, I feel like they could probably cut that down to 2 games just because fans don't even like it. It's a waste of people's money, and who tunes in to those games. I think from a fan perspective, they should cut it down. And just, again, as long as they have the regular training, OTAs and things like that, I think the guys can be fine.
I agree.
But to help you wrap up, because I know I added time in there. Hey,
no, it's okay, man.
I'm Chris Jenkins with Charlotte Vibe, and I cover myself predominantly the Carolina Panthers. And the easiest way is just to Google Charlotte Vibe, but I'm on all the all the social media outlets from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I love connecting with people. And I try to be a man of the people and love to take questions from people and go directly to those coaches and players and ask those questions along with giving my opinion about things.
Yeah. Check out Charlotte Vibe. You do a show how many times a week? Twice a week?
No, this year I'm trying to do it I haven't committed to daily.
Okay.
But it ends up being probably about 4 days a week. So typically each day I try to at least give a report from the team as far as injuries and latest developments. And then on game day, I'll do 2 shows. I'll do a pregame show, and then I'll do a post-game show. And both of those, due to COVID, I have now made live because unfortunately I have not seen a football stadium this season.
Yeah, there you go. Well, yeah, you know where to find them. You know where you can catch them again. Chris Jenkins, Charlotte Vibe. thank you so much for jumping inside the barbershop. And until next time, Chris, appreciate you being here, and we'll do it again.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Peace.
Let's rock, we at the barbershop. Let's rock, we at the barbershop. Stay tuned.